So, where did a place like a Gilead actually come from? Was it just some sci fi nightmare that Margaret Atwood dreamed up? Well, not exactly. We're going to dive into how Atwood packed The Handmaid's Tale with the real anxieties of the 20th century, showing us that Gilead wasn't built from scratch, it was built from pieces of our own history.
You know, in the nightmare world of Gilead, the past is everything. For our narrator, Offred, it's her only secret refuge. But her memories are way more than just an escape. They're like clues, little breadcrumbs that show us exactly how a society that looks an awful lot like ours could slide into a horror show like hers. And the scariest part? Those clues are rooted in very real history.
All right, so let's start with Offred's main survival tactic, retreating into her memory. She's constantly flashing back to the time before, and these aren't just random daydreams. They're her way of piecing together how everything fell apart. Because her past, well, it looks a whole lot like our present, and that's where the warning really is. And this is where it gets really interesting. When Offred remembers her friend Moira or her own mother, she's not just reminiscing. Atwood is plugging us directly into the real and really heated feminist debates and culture wars that were raging in the 1980s, the very decade the book was written. I mean, just look at this contrast. It's night and day, isn't it? In the before, you have a university campus, a world of ideas. People are studying psychology, debating really tough subjects like date rape. And in the after, all of that is gone. Women are literally burning magazines, watching parts of themselves turn to black ash. Now, this wasn't just made up. It taps right into the very real, very contentious anti-pornography debates and censorship movements that were a huge battleground in the culture wars. And get this quote, "Good riddance to bad rubbish." The craziest part? That's not some Gileadian official talking. That's a woman from the time before Gilead, one of the activists at that book burning. And that right there is the key. It shows how the groundwork for Gilead was already being laid. These deep divisions in society, they were the perfect fertile ground for an extremist ideology to come in and take over. So these ideas didn't just float around in the air. They had champions. They had real people pushing for them. Which brings us to one of Gilead's main architects, Serena Joy. She is our direct link to the rise of the religious right and the anti-feminist movements of that time. Her whole journey is just fascinating and pretty ironic, don't you think? She starts out as a public figure, a gospel singer, giving all these speeches about the sanctity of the home. She's this powerful voice telling women where they belong, a clear reflection of real historical figures like Phyllis Schlafly. But then comes the twist. She gets exactly what she wished for and becomes a silent prisoner in the very system she helped create. Turns out, her power was only good for building the cage, not for living in it. So you have to wonder, how furious must she be? When you realize Serena Joy isn't just some made-up villain, but a mirror of real people and real movements, it hits you. Gilead wasn't dropped on them from outer space. No, it was built. Slowly, piece by people with ideas that already existed in our world. Okay, so once a regime like this gets into power, how does it stay in power? Let's break down the tools, the mechanics of fear that Gilead uses every single day. And the thing is, none of this is new. These tactics have historical precedents in totalitarian regimes all over the world. And it's all so calculated, you know? The bodies hanging on the wall aren't just punishments, they are public theater. The color-coded uniforms for handmaids and echo wives, that's about creating instant social hierarchy. Even the creepy rituals, like a funeral for an unbaby or the way they say goodbye under his eye, it's all part of the machine. It's a system designed to make you feel completely alone and too scared to even think a rebellious thought. But even in a system this rigid, Atwood shows us these little glimmers of resistance. The word Mayday is a perfect example. On the surface, it sounds like nothing, but underneath, it's a distress signal from the French Mayday, help me. It's a secret code, hidden in plain sight. It's this incredible reminder that you can't completely crush the human spirit. Even when speech is forbidden, people find a way to cry for help. And that brings us full circle, back to Offred's most powerful tool for survival, the one thing they haven't been able to take from her story. For Offred, just the act of telling her story is the ultimate rebellion. It's how she holds on to her identity, her humanity, in a world designed to strip her of both. By turning her trauma into a narrative, she's taking back a tiny piece of control. She's insisting that she is a person, not an object, and that what happened to her matters. If it's her story, she gets to control the ending. That is a powerful act of defiance. So, what's the big takeaway here? When you connect the novel to its historical roots, its true power just explodes. This isn't just a dystopian fantasy anymore. It becomes a timeless warning, showing how the language we use, the political fights we have, and the freedoms we might take for granted can be the building blocks of our own oppression. Offred's story becomes a kind of historical testimony. And the novel ends this whole reflection with a question that turns everything right back on us. By asking, who is you? Offred makes you, the reader, a part of her story. She's not just talking to herself in the dark anymore. She's sending a message out from this nightmare, asking us to bear witness, and maybe most importantly, asking us to listen.